Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and I am recapping I don't even know what week this is, week 8? Well, I'm recapping our loss to the San Francisco 49ers at home. So, some of the same things we've talked about, but I and other people I say agree, we kind of knew what this season was going to be. Even with drafting Justin Fields and all that, we kind of knew what this season was going to be, especially after the preseason. For me, seeing the defense, I kind of knew what this season was going to be. But this team has been the same, and I know I'm a broken record with that, but we are the type that can play with most teams, and we need few lucky breaks to win against talented teams. That's just what it is. That's what it has been, and that's what it will be until things change up. Now, the game is kind of whatever, honestly, because, just where we are in how things went, I don't think it was anything different than what we've seen before. The only difference I would say is that we are heavily leaning on our run game a lot more than we have before, and it's looked better than it has before in years past. But other than that, it still comes down to the same situation. Like, there's a lot of things to talk about in football. If you're a real fan, you know there's 100,000 things to talk about. One of the things that we talk about that's a big picture as like football minds is the type of games you have. You obviously, we got blowouts, we got shootouts, we got the team getting ahead early with capitalizing off mistakes and then the other team rallying back, blah, blah, blah. We got all that. The Bears, we typically had the same type of game that we just had right now, where the defense makes some early stops and makes some early plays, and the offense either gives the ball right back or the offense have some early plays as well, and it's a close game. But then we get to the point where the defense gives up something and it forces the offense to respond, and we don't respond either on third down or in the red zone. And then we fall behind, either field goals to touchdowns or punts to touchdowns. And that's typically what happened in this game. But a couple points that I kind of saw that I want to point out. Number one is Justin Fields. I'm worried because I'm seeing exactly what I expected could happen if Justin Fields continued to play in this type of situation. And again, please understand, every football player is a person. Too many of y'all forget that. That means they're going to process things. They're going to do things differently. So there's definitely a chance that Justin Fields could stay consistent. But history shows that typically the typical person is going to get into these habits. And he's right there. Number one, what I noticed very early on is that he's very tight in the pocket. You see the two hands gripping the ball really strongly. You see the kind of bent down knees, almost a very compact stance. Obviously, a lot of times quarterbacks are going to be in that, but there's a certain part of the play, of a passing play, where you're going to move in the pocket, you're going to relax that up, you might drop the shoulder so you could let the ball go, whatever. But you could see that he was standing in a very statuesque, compact pose because he wanted to be able to brace for the hit, and so he wouldn't fumble. And you look at any other game that he's been playing in, he's got that tall look, his shoulders are more relaxed. Even if he's got two hands on the ball or one hand on the ball, you could tell it's a lot more loose. Now, it's not to say you should have loose ball handling, but a good quarterback, a veteran, is going to know when to shift in and out of those phases. You're going to know when to be tight in the pocket, when you got to climb, when you got to keep the ball close. You're going to know when you could be a little looser. You're going to know when you can uncoil so you can rip it. And you can see that he was just tight for the most of the play. Now, the problem with that is it was resulting in him not using his lower body mechanics as best as he could have. So when you got that kind of bent down stance, you in that compact stance, you're not able to step up and into a throw, use the torque from your hips, I can't say that, and use that momentum from the hips to get the power, but mostly to get the accuracy. And so what you saw was a lot of time he was arm throwing balls. Now he's got a good arm. He can throw with velocity, but still you're not going to get the same level of accuracy if you're not able to step into a throw. And that's what happens a lot of times with young quarterbacks or quarterbacks without good mechanics, is that they're not going to step into a throw, A, because they think their arm is big enough, or B, they're just scared to step into a hit, into pressure. You've seen sometimes, obviously, if it's right in your face, you're going to throw falling back or something. But sometimes the pocket is getting pushed and you have to step into the pocket, into the push, so you can follow through and make that throw, because that's the only way you're going to get accuracy on it. And he just was not able to do a lot of that early on because he was so tight with his stance, scared to fumble. You saw that he was just really protecting the ball in anticipation of a hit so that he could cover it and not fumble. And so it's an overcorrection from what's been happening, where he's been getting hit and been getting criticized for fumbling. And I think part of that is mechanics. Part of that is pocket awareness. And a lot of people have been blaming him, saying he's not sensing that pressure. So that's number one. Number two, that was kind of two things, because it impacts his ability to be accurate. In some throws, he was not. And so number two, I think part of that clock being sped up is that he's not reading. And I'm pretty sure they don't even want him to read at this point. They want him to get into one, maybe two looks so that he could get the ball out quick to adjust for the pressure. And I think in his mind, he wants to get the ball out quick to adjust for the pressure because, again, he's anticipating getting hit. Number three, he's running. And I saw somebody said they was happy about it, and I'm sure a lot of people are. People, please realize what you're seeing. You're seeing exactly what happened to Mitch Trubisky. And I said the exact same thing that I'm about to say about Justin Fields. I said this about Mitch Trubisky. The problem with this, and I saw the one subscriber or fan comment that they like it and they hope it doesn't stick as a bad habit. That's not how that works. You don't get to shift in bad habits in and out. A bad habit is a habit for a reason. And so if you get to a point, and I'm not saying he's there yet, this was one game, but this is how it starts. This is how it started with Trubisky. If you get to a point where you're not doing anything good, you're not throwing accurately, you might be throwing interceptions, you're not throwing with good timing, you might be fumbling, getting sacked, you might not be doing anything well. And then you're athletic. And that's the only positive thing you've been getting. And then you get to a point where you're in the pinch, you're going to go back to that thing that was positive for you. Now, there's two, maybe three real big issues with this. Because I see a lot of people talking about mobile quarterbacks and everything. And there's a very big difference. And people have to understand the difference. Number one, people like Aaron Rodgers, a Pat Mahomes, a Josh Allen, or this version of Josh Allen, being mobile to extend the play and create a second play is very different than just running the ball. That's two very different things. And they're going to have different results. That's number one. Number two, being able to make a play happen or do an RPO or whatever here and there It's very different than having a Baltimore Ravens offense where you literally designed the roster and the playbook to accommodate for the quarterback running. Most plays are not accommodated for that, which is why usually you seldom have a quarterback scrambling when it's preferable for them. But if you have a quarterback all the time running, the receivers are not going to be in sync. They're not going to be able to anticipate any of that. And so they're not always going to be able to block for you or set up a lane. Number two, the O-line definitely not anticipating that. So that's going to change. And you see it a lot because, especially with Lamar early, when you get into that scramble all the time stuff, the offensive line is set to block one particular way. The rush lanes are one particular way. Once you change direction, the D-line can see that. The O-line can't. And that's when you get holding penalties. That's when you get wide open defenders being able to make a sack. And so, obviously, the other thing is it takes away your ability to go down the field. There's going to be times where it makes sense and where you're in a part of the field where you can make something happen. But the game is the game. And I don't know if people believe the hype that the media keeps saying, but the game is not changed. And the game will not change. If you are able to stay in the pocket and make a throw, that is always going to be the biggest play. There's no question about it. And I shouldn't say play, but that's always going to be the biggest method or the most efficient method to making plays, to coming back. You see it all the time. If you down, what did they say about the Ravens? If you go up on the Ravens and the Ravens get down, they kind of fall apart because they weren't built to come back that way. If you get down 15 points and the quarterback's running every other play, do you really think you're going to come back? Between the time it takes you to get down the field, the time it takes the defense to get the other team off the field, if they get them off the field, do you really think you're going to come back doing that? No, the big play is in the pocket. And oftentimes, game is a game of inches and seconds. The only way that you could hold off to that right moment, most of the time it's a right moment downfield. You have to understand, it ain't just open, not open. Sometimes a receiver is clearing a defender, and you need that extra second for him to clear it till you could throw it where it's open, or you might have a double move going, or whatever the case may be. There's moments and seconds that you can be the difference between an open play and a bad play. And the only way you can get those is in the pocket. And so when you get into this running mode where I'm going to just take off, you don't stay in the pocket long enough to even see the play develop. And then also you get a lot of players where they're at a point where they are just anticipating taking off. They're not even really looking at the play fully. And not only that, and I hate to keep piling on, but the facts are the facts. If you can't even play the play live, then that's the lowest level. The lowest level of a quarterback is being able to play the play live. Snap the ball, know your play, see what's happening, make a decision. The highest level are the quarterbacks who make the play before the play happens. They're the ones that can do, and we get a lot of motion and stuff nowadays, so you can get tips and figure out what the coverage is or what it might be. Or you look at the alignment, you know where the receiver is going to go. You know exactly what can happen, and if that happens, where you should go. That's the highest level of a quarterback. So if you can't even get to the point where you're in a play and you can make those reads, you're never going to get to the point where you can pre-snap figure out what you want to do. So that's all that with Justin Fields. But to that point, I'm going to switch to the defense real quick. Jimmy G showed that exactly. This is a veteran quarterback with a traditional style. not, a top quarterback by any means, but what happened with us on defense is that a lot of times we had the blitz and Jimmy knew the blitz was coming, or he knew exactly where to go if a blitz was coming. And again, that's what I was talking about with the pre-snap. If you look at the alignment and you say, okay, if this guy goes here, I know I have this route, I'm throwing it right here. And then we did it so often, they started purposefully running Ayuk out of the slot slants because they knew that we were going to blitz either a safety linebacker, we're going to vacate that inside hook, and boom, the slant's wide open there. They did it, almost got a touchdown on it. And so the reason we got into not a lot, but some of those blitz looks is because we weren't getting home with the 4-man pressure. Again, not many teams can get home with 4-man pressure. But when you can't, or when you don't at least have a prominent pass rusher, then you have to manufacture pressure. I've been talking about that all year with the stunts in the games. Then you got blitzing. Today, we haven't been a heavy blitz team, but that's something we had to do. Then you don't have Khalil Mack on top of that, who again, while talented, has not been a great pass rusher. And people want to argue that, oh, look at the sacks. Look at the film. And so, we talked about that ad nauseum. So the reason that affects us on this game is, again, we have to start getting into those blitz looks. And a veteran quarterback like Jimmy knows exactly how to take advantage of that. And that helped them out in a number of plays. So there's that. And then the other thing I would say is Khalil Herbert. I talked about him last week, like I said how I felt. I would say watching these last few weeks, the difference between him and Montgomery that I'm starting to see of why he's been really effective is his decisiveness. He's explosive, yes, and so is Montgomery, but Herbert runs with a decisiveness, and his cuts are smooth. And then, and you hear cut, you think of a jump cut, you think of a big step. No, it's a slight movement. It's what I always used to call running backs navigation. Not to say he's Marshall Faulk, but I just remember Marshall Faulk was really great at that, where it's not some big dramatic turn the whole play around or jump here, jump there, looking for something. It's just a slight movement. I'm going downhill. If I got to slightly change my course, then I'm going to do that. And I feel like Khalil Herbert has had that. And that's what helps the O-line. It's not that the O-line is magically better, even though I think, obviously having James Daniels and everybody together, having Mustaford, Peters, and Borum a lot stronger, even with Ifedi, we were a lot stronger than we used to be. And so, yes, that is true. But it's not that we're great run blocking and blowing people up, or that we're running anything different. We're running the exact same 2 plays we've been running all the last 2 years. But Herbert's decisiveness is really helping things out because he knows exactly where he wants to go. And again, football second in inches. Like, timing is everything. By the time a linebacker is able to react, or a safety or somebody's able to feel, he's made his choice. He's not jumping around and letting people collapse on him. Not to say that Montgomery does that, but he's just, I think, more decisive than Montgomery is. And I think that's why it just looks a little different with him. And then the last thing I'll say, which is Justin Fields and everything else, our playbook is, I've been talking about that for years. But you see it. Even when we're down and it's time to start coming back, we still run the same naked boot look that we've been running since we played the Rams last year, and we just took it and won't stop running it. We ran that same play. We run the same curls. We run the same few plays that we keep running. And even, we mix it up a little bit, but still it's not imaginative, and it's just not even, I wouldn't even say imaginative. It's just not good. Like, when I draw up a play as an offensive coach, like, to me, the best coaches are always looking like, how can we attack these different areas of the field? Because coverages are based on areas of the field. They're looking at where can they cover. So cover 3, who has the deep third or fourth? Cover three is obviously a third. Who has the curl? Who has the flat or both? Who has the hook? Who had you always talk about that. So as an offensive person, you should always be looking at who is attacking that area, because then you know who in coverage is going to go where. And so then you know what's going to be open, or you know that at least you're occupying certain defenders. And just when we run our stuff, it's just so many times, and we gotten a little better, but you saw so many times in the last few years, we will always have people in the same area. And you would bring the defense together and just make the throws harder. And so I don't think we space it well. I don't think we attack the different parts of the field well. And that the way we run our offense is not conducive to coming back and putting up big scores. It's very conservative. So when you get down, it's tougher to do that. And so, yeah, that's what we're looking at. Someone asked about Borum at right tackle. I think he's solid. I mean, nobody jumps off the screen for me. He's, I think, powerful. He's got hands. I think his feet are a little more clean than Yafetti's, but I don't think his feet are fast enough to consistently play at a high level at tackle. You're going to have some people that really get him, but I think he's technically sound. I think he's got some shock in his hands, but overall, I think he'll just probably be like a C+ player for us, so which is good. I mean, but I don't think it's nothing over the moon. I think I have one other thing to say, can't remember, but the last thing I'll say, again, always got to come for some of these fanatics. I just find it funny how when we win or do well, it's like, see, Nagy's not calling the plays. When Laser calls the plays, we do this. Yeah. But then when we lose, Nagy needs to be fired. I don't care if he's not calling the plays. He's the head coach. So if we do well, no credit. But if we do bad, he needs to get fired. I just think that's funny. And that's coming from a person who said we should have fired him at the end of last year. But anyway, that's it for me. Go to the comment section, share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, stay up and bear down.